Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the Adrian Arts Latin America Center and its second Google Hangout. I'm Jason Marzak. I'm the Deputy Director of the Latin America Center. And for those of us who do not know us, the Latin America Center is housed within the Atlantic Council, which is a think tank in DC with a broad global footprint. The center was started 2 years ago to highlight the positive transformations in the region and also to emphasize the enormous progress and innovations that have been made across Latin America, which is ever more relevant as the region becomes a social and economic partner more broadly for the global community. And this type of innovation, we see that across the region, but one country where we specifically see it is in Mexico and with Mexican innovators. And so that is why we are doing this series on innovation. Like the first, this Hangout focuses on innovators themselves. And we have chosen two of some of the best in the manufacturing industry to be a part of this Hangout. Carlos Gomez and hopefully Linda Franco will be joining us as well. They will both inform a publication authored by Arturo Franco that we will be releasing at the Museum of Memory and Tolerance in Mexico City on April 5th. So please save the date. And we are doing this entire initiative with Deloitte Mexico. It is thanks to Deloitte's generous funding and support that these Hangouts and the conference in April are possible. I'd also like to thank our outreach partners for today's Hangout, Fundación IDEA, the Institute of the Americas, the Miami Institute for the Americas, the Inter-American Development Bank, IQ Latino, Former Hub, and Mita Ventures. This is going to be a short hangout, about a half hour, and we'll run it until 1:30 p.m. Eastern. And we encourage everyone to ask questions. You can ask questions by Twitter using the hashtag ACInnovationMX. Also, if you're watching us via the Google Hangout platform, you can submit your questions directly through Google Hangouts. Or a third option is also just to go do the old-fashioned, or I guess now old-fashioned route of emailing your questions to Maria Fernanda, and that's mperez, P-E-R-E-Z, at atlanticcouncil.org. So why don't we'll start off with Carlos Gomez. Carlos will give a 7-minute presentation on his experience as an innovator. Carlos is the co-founder of Neva, which has revolutionized the shower experience by doing among other things, helping to save 75% of water and energy while in the shower. His company has received a lot of attention, including from global technology companies such as Google and Apple that have invested in his company. So I'll turn it over to Carlos to explain his story, and we'll take it from there.
Hi, Jason. Thanks a lot for featuring. I hear a little bit of echo. I don't know if that's normal. The echo is off. And I think everything around Neva started about 6 years ago in Mexico City. I was at the time running a chain of gyms in Mexico. We had 40 gyms around the country with around 100,000 members. So we were showering around 25,000 people a day. And as you know, Mexico City, it's in a very high location. It's 7,700 feet above sea level, or 2,200 meters above sea level. So practically all water in Mexico has to be pumped from somewhere else. And in Mexico, when you cross certain threshold of consumption, the tariff makes a big jump. So in some clubs, we were experiencing a big bill in regards to water. So one day I called my dad. He's been a tinkerer all his life, an engineer by the things that he's chosen to do. So what happened there is that I called him and I invited him to lunch and took him for a small tour in the office and show him what it was all about, people showering in Sport City. And I told him, we have to come up with something that really saves water while people are showering. And that's how it all started. We submitted our first international patent in 2010. And after that, we hired La Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México, all the design school, to come up with a first approach in design. And that was what happened in the first years. After that, I met through Endeavor one of my co-founders, Philip Winter. And we started coming to San Francisco, and that's how everything started. That we saw a bigger market potential here in San Francisco. People were more willing to adopt to a new technology. So we decided to move the offices here. We hired a local design firm to redo all the image, all the industrial design, and I would say that about 10 months ago we had something very solid in terms of design, and the top prototypes were already available, I would say, in November 2014. After that, we invited our third co-founder, Gabe Parisi. He was by then working in Apple. He had been working there for a couple of years, and he was very excited about the technology, and he saw the opportunity of taking this technology to a whole new place, and he started consulting with us in December 2014, and by March last year he was already full-time in the company. So I would say that the initial team was formed in March last year, and after that we were accepted into Y Combinator, one of the best incubators here in Silicon Valley, and that was a 3-month program. And in the middle of that, we launched our Kickstarter in August last year. We were very successful doing that. We sold around 10,000 shower heads in a month, and now we're working in the finalizing the engineering part of the mass production units, and actually hiring contract manufacturers to manufacture what will be the Neva. So that has been my experience in a nutshell.
I'd now like to turn to Linda Franco. Linda is the CEO and co-founder of Machina, which is a company that specializes in wearable technology. And I'll let her explain what that means. But she sometimes refers to it as Nike meets Apple, and then they have a baby, which I think is a really intriguing explanation. Linda?
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Well, Machina is practically a wearable technology company, as you mentioned. And by this, we mean that we embed electronic components into clothing. We design our own technology. We design the clothing, and we have different kinds of products. We have our most famous, and the first one is called the MIDI controller jacket, which is practically used for DJs, dancers, for music producers, and it allows them to make music through their body movements through a mobile app that we developed. And our second product was a hoodie with speakers, which comes in different kinds of colors, and it allows you to hear music inside your hoodie, like sending a Wi-Fi signal to your phone. And it's perfect for when you're in the subway, when you're riding your bicycle, walking. It's more of an everyday life kind of product. And currently we're developing one that's called OBI, which stands for Out of Body Experience, and is focused to the gaming and virtual reality industry. First, we're looking to attack other verticals like health, military, among others. And practically what this product does is that, let's say that you're playing a person shooter kind of game, it allows you to feel exactly what you're doing in the game, so you can move through the game using your whole body. If you get shot, you will feel exactly where you got shot, if it's in the arm, in the chest, in the back. And the idea behind Machina is to make wearables that are actually wearable. So we have a very strong focus on fashion and design, and all with the idea that you can use them to your everyday life.
Linda, just congratulations. I mean, these are both incredibly innovative manufacturing technologies that each of you have come up with that have implications, I think, far beyond the actual product themselves. Just a first question, starting, with you, Carlos, is you're in San Francisco now. One of the things that we're highlighting as part of the initiative is our Mexican innovators and innovation in Mexico. So what would be some of the things that what they can maybe motivate you or incentivize you to move back to Mexico, or to broaden your company to have more of a Mexico presence? Carlos, no?
Yeah, can you hear me now? I was trying to unmute. Yeah, so, well, the first 4 years of Neva, or 5 years, were developed in Mexico. The idea came out from Mexico. The initial engineering and design came out from Mexico. After that, we saw that the San Francisco market was a little bit more open to, I would say, three things. The first one is to make a design that would be more accepted worldwide. Number two, to find the talent to immediately come and join the company. And number three, investors that will likely fund a company like this one. So that was the reason that we moved our offices to San Francisco. I see myself as cross-border. I see the company as cross-border. Mm-hmm. And now that we're entering into manufacturing, there's a huge possibility that some components would be manufactured in Mexico. Actually, we're talking to several. So I think that we can leverage from being from both sides of the border, or both countries, to come up with a product that it's high quality, but also in the price range that we need it to be. So so being so close, actually we have several direct flights, and with NAFTA, I think that it is easy now to think of a company that can be in both sides or both countries and be effective, taking the advantages that both offer.
I think that's a really interesting point, because that's a lot of the way that U.S.-Mexico trade works overall, and I would assume that just the advancements in Mexico in the last few years, especially on the talent side and on investors, they were interested in funding innovators, might make that dynamic change, not only now but increasingly in the future.
I would like to mention two more things. I think that the talent in Mexico is there to develop amazing things like what Makina and Linda are developing. I know that for certain. I think that the manufacturing capabilities are also there. You see all these contract manufacturers such as Jabil, Foxconn, and Flextronics having big plants in Mexico and big presses in Mexico. And with the dollar exchange rate changes or fluctuations in the last year and in the last 4 weeks, I would say that there is an increased opportunity to do experience high quality manufacturing in Mexico. And now Mexico is presenting as a very viable manufacturing option, with better lead times than China, and also shorter transportation costs. So I think that we're going to see many companies taking advantage of these situations of both countries.
Linda, would you agree with Carlos?
Yes, I would agree. I would just add that based on our experience, well, just like Carlos, we started our idea in Mexico. We have been doing this, I don't know if I mentioned it, but for 4 years now. And the first years it were really, really difficult, because manufacturing in Mexico, even though it's very competitive right now, or starting to be like in China, we still have a lot of things to improve. And that's the bureaucracy that's behind not only manufacturing companies, but also by big corporations, and also in innovation-wise. Our experience that we have had is that most manufacturing factories that we approached were really scared to try and work with new kinds of designs, with new kinds of materials, and even smaller quantities. We haven't had the luck to have so many orders just yet, like Carlos, but something that you can see in Mexico is that if it's not above 10,000 or even more, it's something that is not viable for manufacturers. So that has forced us to do our own small factory per se, where we can collaborate with different kinds of talents and produce in-house, which in a certain way became of an opportunity for us because integration is a big part of our success right now and how we embed electronic components into clothing. But I think that's slowly changing because even manufacturers that have been out there in the market for so long are trying to innovate, try new kinds of materials, which is great because with exportation and importation of everywhere, we're starting to see more things and opportunities.
So thanks, Linda. And I want to remind everybody, we have a couple questions that have been coming in, but just to remind everybody that if you have a question, you can either tweet it using the hashtag ACInnovationMX. You can also submit it via the platform, which is where we've gotten a few questions thus far. And you can also email your questions directly to mperez, P-E-R-E-Z, at atlanticcouncil.org. Before going into some of the questions we've received, I want to actually bring up a question that we received in our last Hangout, and this is a question for you, Linda. In that last Hangout, someone asked us what it was like to be a woman in a very male-dominated industry, and hopefully this person who asked the question last time is tuned in again this time. But do you have any advice? Or can you talk more broadly about your experience of being a woman in an industry that's traditionally seen as male-dominated?
Yes, of course. My advice is that us as women, we're very well used to put labels even on ourselves. It's not just male putting name tags or labels on women. We create labels ourselves. I don't think myself as a young woman who's Mexican, who's dealing with people in the U.S. I don't label myself, my persona. I just go out there and represent what I do, what I love, and what's my passion. And I think that's what's most important of all, because if you start labeling yourself, then others start seeing that. That's my point of view. Yes, it's gaming right now specifically. It's a very male-dominant kind of industry, but it's changing. You just have to find the correct kind of places to go to and start making a change. I'm very involved in different kinds of women in tech and women in business kind of events to promote that change that we have to see, and it all starts from education at home, in the workplace, and that's slowly changing. So the change practically starts from each one of us.
That's great. Thanks, Linda. We have a question here from Wes, which is, what's your advice for someone who has an idea and wants to turn that idea into reality, but doesn't really know where to start? What's your advice for first steps that a budding innovator, I assume this is who Wes is, that wants to really see the success, I guess, that both you, Linda, and Carlos have seen?
Well, I think that everybody has ideas out there, and the idea is the commencement of anything. But also, an idea is just that. I would encourage him to start to come up with a prototype and start prototyping it and showing it to people and iterating and building new prototypes, either software or hardware. Today, there are the tools out there to do easy, fast prototyping. The idea as that doesn't go much farther than a coffee discussion.
Linda, what's your advice?
Also, I agree with Carlos, but also you will see as you start going out that someone else might have the same idea as yourself. I think the secret all lies as well in execution. So you just have to try and fail fast and start working on that, and if you start building a team, that's even better, and try to find like a team that can support what you're weak in, your weaknesses, to have a multidisciplinary team that could take you to push this idea forward.
Great. Another question from Emily is, how has Mexico's innovation landscape improved in the last few years? I mean, there's been a lot of attention at the presidential level. There's even a person who sits at Los Pinos, who's in their portfolio specifically to work on innovation issues. So how has the landscape changed at federal level, and maybe even I'll take Emily's question one step further, and also at a state level. There's a lot of attention to Guadalajara, and Guadalajara being the Silicon Valley of Mexico.
It's definitely slowly growing. We have a lot of events focused on entrepreneurism and startups every single week. Right now, there's a major hub for entrepreneurs called Startup Mexico, which is growing like a monster, and it's starting to be first to start in Mexico City, then in Mérida, among others. I think Guadalajara is a great place for technology and innovation. And well, that's slowly growing, and there's a lot of companies that are starting to get out there and make a change, not only for the country, but also for markets outside of Mexico.
Okay. And another question here, this is probably somebody from business school, John, is why did you decide to create your own company instead of just joining another company? And what were and maybe taking a question a step further, is what were the risk factors that you considered, and how did you in the end decide to move forward despite some of those risks that exist?
Well, in my case, in my personal case, I have been an entrepreneur most of my life. I haven't worked for any company before. This would be my third company. And I don't think when you start out, you don't really measure what risk you're taking until it happens. It just hits you out of the blue, and you start getting experience on how to surpass that kind of barriers. But it's an exciting challenge. It's definitely a roller coaster of emotions, and and it's something that must be clear that problems never end. You fix one problem, and then there will be other kinds of challenges, and that's the whole beauty of it, that you have to wake up every morning, and you're very, very lucky to be doing exactly what you love, and it's your passion.
Carlos, do you have this similar perspective?
Well, yeah, I've been an entrepreneur since early in my career. I started building companies at 17, but then I joined the workforce, and I worked for GE, and I worked for Caterpillar, and then I was CEO of Ford City and Grupo Martin Mexico for more than 7 years. And at the end, I think that I wanted to build a big company and of my own. I was used to working at big companies, and the idea of building one that was now mine, it sounded so much better. And just a small snap on innovation. I think that there's innovation in Mexico. I think that the innovation we're talking about is a startup innovation, but there's been years of constant innovation in many fields in Mexico. Big companies have been innovating for many decades now. And I'm chairman of Endeavor Mexico, and I think that the pace of startups doing those kind of innovation is rapidly moving forward in the past 3 or 4 years, and the government efforts are starting showing in the companies that are being built. And I would say that the most remarkable aspect of it is that hearing it every time more the bright graduates of top schools in Mexico wanting to go forward to build up their own company. In the past, those people were looking to go and work to establish companies, either Mexican or transnational. And now a good share of those graduates want to go out to build their company. I think that is what it's going to shift in the long term, the innovation pace.
Yeah, I think that's Carlos. That's an excellent point, and it's incredibly positive development. We have a few minutes. There's a question here from Andreas on our platform. What is the single biggest thing that is still missing or can be improved in the Mexican ecosystem to foster more innovation and support entrepreneurship? So I'll start with you, Carlos. A very light question for you. What is the single biggest thing?
I think that the effect of Mark Zuckerberg, or in a previous generation of Steve Jobs, of being so successful counterculture entrepreneurs that challenge the establishment to build up amazing companies, that has brought thousands of young kids wanting to go into startups. I think that in Mexico, what it's missing now is to have that playbook of how to be successful building a company that is not a monopoly or not a economically super strong company as the ones that we see in Mexico. So I think that the building of that stereotype of that successful story is being built up right now by many people. But once that image has been built, there are going to be many that will follow.
Yeah, that's excellent point. Linda?
I would agree in everything that Carlos mentioned. I think Mexico is a country that is mostly ruled by monopoly kind of companies, bureaucracy, and one must understand that a month in a process inside a big corporation, or even government, or even, maybe I shouldn't say that, but a month that could take long to take for one decision. In startup world, that means death. So things need to move faster, and I think that's something that really needs to change, because inspiration is there. People really want to go out there and create stuff. Talent is there. The opportunities are a lot of money flow. Still needs to be that push from big people on top that can make that flow into all the startup world.
Awesome. I think that answer, and Carlos, your answer as well, are excellent ways to end our discussion. Again, thank you both for participating, but not only thank you, but congratulations on your excellent work and on the incredibly transformative innovations that you're behind. I assume that if people want to find out more, they can go to Machina's website or to the website for Neva to actually see how the shower works on Neva's website, or on Machina to see some of the actual products. I want to again thank Deloitte Mexico for being our partner in this innovation series, and all the other outreach partners that worked with us on this specific initiative. And again, save the dates for April 5th in Mexico City, where we will be having our conference on this, and also releasing a publication authored by our non-resident senior fellow, Arturo Franco. So thank you all very much.